Thanks, everyone, for coming. A couple of requests before we start. If you're planning to speak tonight, I need you to sign in so that we can see how many people are going to speak so we can divide the time that we have evenly. So if you're planning to speak, please start to pass a sheet around it's on the desk there so that we can get that up here so that we can divide the time appropriately.
Other than the normal signage?
Yeah, or let me ask this way. Is everybody that wants to speak signed in? Is anybody else that want to speak want to sign in? So Ashley, could you grab those and tell me how many people would like to speak? And then we'll move on while we're determining that. If you'd like to speak, I need you to please sign in, and then we're going to see how many people that is, and then see if we can come up with a time allotment. And while we're doing that, we're going to continue to move on here. Now, there's something that's changed here in the last few minutes. I received a phone call from Dave Klott, and Dave is ill, and he's not going to come to the meeting tonight. And so I think what I'd like to do is continue the meeting, but the calendar item I'm going to change from action to discussion. So we're not going to vote on that tonight in Dave's absence. And so with that, I think while we're determining the open forum, I'd like to have the celebrating our successes. So Afton, you want to do that, please?
All right. I have the privilege of being able to introduce.
Just a second, can you push your button?
Good now? All right.
Yep.
I have the honor of being able to introduce some four outstanding students at Albert Lea High School. And I think this is a great opportunity to be able to show them to you and kind of just briefly describe some of the awards that the Minnesota State High School League gives to our students. So to start things off, I just want to explain the awards. The first one is called the Excel Award. It is Excellence in Community Education and Leadership. This is an award that is exclusively for high school juniors. So the two students that were chosen from Albert Lea are juniors this year, and they are active in school activities, they show leadership qualities, and they volunteer within their community. Some of the criteria for this award is, again, they have to be a junior, they have to be making satisfactory progress towards graduation, they have to be involved in a Minnesota State High School League fine art and/or athletic activity. They need to hold leadership positions in their school, and they need to work on a voluntary basis in their community. How these awards are established within our school is I reach out to our staff, and I have our staff nominate students that fit this criteria and that they feel are exemplary students in our school. We had quite a few nominations, and we were very lucky to have Hannah Savicole and Alex Severson receive this award. How these are chosen is that a staff member nominates them to be a part of this award. The students are then, they can...
If the parents are there, my pictures, you can please come stand behind me.
No, not a problem. So once the district staff nominates these students, then they can go forward with their nomination forms. We do have our administrative staff then, we have a committee that does choose these students. And so Hannah Savicole, who is right here in the black, and Alex Severson, who is in the gray, our Albert Lea High School award winners. And what this does is that they're at a district level right now, but then we bring them to the Minnesota State High School League, and they have a chance to win this award at the state level as well. Unfortunately, our students were not chosen for that. We have a great pool of students within our state, but this is a great time for us to recognize the things that they do within our district. And just to briefly touch on some of the things that Hannah and Alex have been involved in. Hannah is part of the soccer, cross-country, hockey, and track. She's also a member of band, choir, and show choir. She's been active in math team, link crew, student council, is also active in the YMCA, 4-H, youth hockey, and her church, especially mission trips. A great thing I took from her application was her favorite quote. A quote is, "A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way." And I think this is a great example of Hannah. Next, Alex. Alex is active in golf, hockey, also is in student council within the school district. He is part of the curriculum committee he's a curriculum committee member. He's active in youth and government. He's a political campaign volunteer. He is a youth correspondent to the city council, a golf camp volunteer, and then is also active in his church. And his favorite quote, "You don't have to hold a position to be a leader." So again, we want to congratulate Hannah and Alex for receiving the Excel Award from the Minnesota State High School League. All right, our next award is again through the Minnesota State High School League. It's called our AAA, and that stands for Academics, Arts, and Athletics. To be eligible for this, you have to be a senior. They also have to have a cumulative GPA of 3.0 or higher. They have to participate in a Minnesota State High School League sponsored athletics and fine arts activity. And they just must comply with Minnesota State High School League's Code of Conduct, which is not a problem for our students. Again, the same criteria. We have our staff make nominations of students that they feel fit this role, and then we have a committee that votes on them. And so we were very happy to announce that our AAA award winners were Solveig Lang on the end, and then Sam Thompson in the brown. So a little bit of information regarding Solveig. She is very active in AP and college in the school courses. She's active in choir and orchestra. She has a passion for theater, so she's been in our one-act play, our fall musical, and our spring play. She's also been involved in Knowledgeable, Math Team, Link Crew, and National Honor Society. As a senior, she decided that she wanted to take a leap of faith and go out for cross country. She just felt that was her opportunity to finally experience this, and she just only wished that she would have started earlier because she had so much fun. Something I took from one of her essays in her application was, "Living a full life to me means seeking out adventure and giving everything you do your best effort, and I think my high school experience has lived up to that." She plans to attend Concordia College at Moorhead or St. Olaf College to major in education. And next is Sam Thompson. He's also active in AP classes in college and the school courses. He's active in choir and chorale. He has participated in football, wrestling, and track and field. And he plans to attend Iowa State and major in engineering, and he also has aspirations to become a Marine. One thing that I really pull from Sam is that Sam was injured just within the first, I believe, 2 weeks of his football season this year, and had a pretty devastating knee injury, but was able to come back and compete his senior year in his wrestling. So again, these two students, again, great examples of what we want as student leaders in our school, and I'm very happy to present them to you guys today.
Thank you. Any comments from school board members? I think it's just a great way to start the meeting, celebrating those kind of successes. So thank you all for coming. How many do we have? Three or 30? Just 3 people want to speak? So for those that came late, for the open forum, I just needed to know who wants to speak. And right now I have 3 names. Is there anybody else that came late that would like to speak? Okay. So because of the cameras, when you speak, we have to have you please come to the table and sit in the chair, pull the microphone up close, and then turn the microphone on, and then that makes you on the camera, and then we can all hear you. So Angie Hansen. And we want to try to keep your comments around 2 minutes, but you know, yeah, I mean, we don't want 20, but you know, just we want to hear what you have to say.
All right, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right, good deal. All right, my name is Angie Hansen. I spoke here once before. My son, right back there, he's a second grader at Halverson, and I teach in Southland School District, special education. The reason I'm here today is, again, because of the calendar. And I just want to point out, I think that too often it's everyone's opposed to change. And I don't think that I'm opposed to change. I'm not. But I just want to make sure everyone's aware that change always does impact people. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. Every change probably impacts a lot of people in a good way and a lot of people in a bad way. This small change of 2 weeks, starting the school year early and ending early, will cost me probably about $150 in daycare. So it does affect me, and I'll have some loss of time with my son. However, sometimes change does need to happen, but I think it's just important to make sure it's valid, there are good reasons, and that's very transparent. And I think that's probably why a lot of people are here today, wondering if the transparency is there. The first reasons I heard for the change was because Labor Day is late. But then that would only mean to start a week early, not 2 weeks early. You know, we're actually, this next calendar will be getting out 2 weeks earlier than normal. So I don't think it's a Labor Day issue. The other thing I heard was because of the semester, they want to get the first semester done before break, winter break. And I can understand that. That might be a possible positive change for some people. I'm just wondering if the teachers or the students recommended this, where this is coming from. I understand it's more in line what colleges do, and I can see some benefit there. I can also see, give some packets for the break and stuff. And I don't think it's a big deal to have the semester end after Christmas break because we have spring break, that's a week long too. I'm gonna go over my time. But a couple other things I just want to make sure. I think we're worried that there's no transparency. I think that possibly this change and start, I know a lot of schools do it, start early, have more in-seat time to inflate MCA scores. That's not going to help our students. The scores are going to look higher, but they're not really higher. They're higher, but the kids aren't doing any better. It's just that they were in school 2 weeks earlier, and I don't think that helps. And the other thing is, the other worry I think that most people here probably have is it's just an elaborate ruse to try to get the modified calendar in. I hope that's not true. I hope that whatever reasons are genuine, and that it's not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. Thank you.
Any questions for Angie? Anybody want to say anything? Okay. Scott, Aista.
Good evening, distinguished board. Good evening, distinguished board, ladies and gentlemen, students, if there are any left. My name is Scott Aista. In the presence of this type of board, in past practice, I've kept my opinions to myself. However, I've been compelled to speak. With the calendar reemergence is, in my opinion, valuable time and effort being wasted on already decided issues. This leads me to believe that the opinion of a few is more important than the opinion of the many. I ask that we redirect our focus to the most important issue, which is the students, not the reemergence of decided issues. Please, let's focus on one, becoming a team, and the other topics that will help our students, not focusing on past agendas. Thank you. Questions?
Any questions for Scott? All right, thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
And I can't read this name. Is it Mike Lee? Mike Lee? Sorry.
I'm just his helper.
Did everybody get a copy? My name is Mike Lee. I want to thank you this evening for giving me the opportunity to speak. Like I said, my name is Mike Lee, and I am the board chair of the Freeborn County Board of Commissioners. I'm here tonight to bring you a letter from the county board pertaining to the proposed start date of the 2015-2016 school year. As you know, many of our students are 4-H and FFA members, and by doing so, they're able to work at and create projects and raise farm animals that they show at our county fair. But about 150 of these students will earn the opportunity to show their project at the state fair. Many of them are students of the Elberly School District. We are concerned as to how the early start date will affect the students and their families when the students are exhibiting their projects at the Minnesota State Fair. These are good, hardworking young people who have worked tirelessly throughout the year on their projects and have excelled by earning a trip to show their exhibit at the state level. We also know that at the beginning of the school year, that your teachers are setting the foundation and the building blocks for your students to build upon to grow and excel during the school year. Why would you want to jeopardize the education of these young people by starting school when they will be exhibiting their projects at the state fair? I would like to ask you to leave the start date of the school state back to the day after Labor Day so that your students can all start on an even and level playing field. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Questions or clarifications? All right, thank you.
bet.
Oh, wait, Jill has a question, Mike.
Mike, how many days would you anticipate the children or students being out of school?
Well, see,
for this?
they have to bring in their animals or their projects on the Wednesday before, so you'd have 2 days of school, then they'd be gone through Labor Day. So I mean, there'd be 3 days the first week, and then they miss the whole second week. So you're putting them at a 8 days they're gonna miss, and you're kind of digging a hole, which is gonna take them a while to dig out of. You know, and I just think that's tough, you know. When you're missing the first 8 days and you're setting the foundation for the school year, you know, and then they gotta come back and try and get caught up and stuff. And I'll just go from when I was going to Riverland after the farmland fire. I ended up sick, and I missed the first 2 weeks of the semester. And it took me just about the whole semester to finally get caught back up and to know where I was going, so. I really hope that you guys can leave this date till day after Labor Day, so, thank you.
Okay, so now I need approval of today's agenda with the modification that item 10.1 will be changed to discussion and not approval.
So moved.
Second.
Other discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign, okay. Consent items, all listed there. So I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second? Second. Bill, second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign? Okay, motion carries. Item 7, Superintendent Report, Dr. Funk.
A couple of quick things tonight. First thing, legislative. Here we go. Sorry, just a couple of things of interest. I had an opportunity to speak with Representative Bennett last week, and she's the vice chair of the House Innovation Committee, which is kind of a new committee this year. And her focus in our conversation was House File 2. And it does some interesting things for the school district if it passes. The first thing it does is, right now, we have to go through a pretty lengthy process if we need to hire a community expert in a hard-to-find teaching area. We have to wait for Board of Teaching approval and there's a waiver process that occurs. Under House File 2, the district is allowed to hire a community expert, and the Board of Teaching can weigh in on whether they think that person is qualified, but they don't have the final say on it, the school district does. So we get to determine whether or not, and that provides flexibility for us. And as you're aware from other discussions, we are becoming more and more short on quality, qualified teachers throughout the state of Minnesota as years progress. The second thing really is very interesting for the district, and this is kind of the reason why she called me. It simplifies the process for career tech instruction certification. So, for example, right now we have students taking firefighting class through Riverland. Through this process, if you're a career tech instructor, you can take a community expert, such as a police officer, and we could have a police officer come and teach high school students. If they're qualified to teach the police skills class, they could teach our skills students, a skills course, which would provide a lot of flexibility and opportunity for the district. So that was a real interesting. And the last item up there, which is probably going to be one of the more red-hot issues in the legislature this spring, and if it gets to the governor, is ending teacher seniority as a sole determination for reducing staff when you have teachers who have continuing contract rights. So the bill basically says it is a determination, but it's not necessarily the sole determination. And so the district and I think the bargaining unit would have to sit down and take a look at those criteria. So those are all significant discussion points that I've had with her in the past week. Now, along these same lines, our organization that works for the school district, Schools for Equity and Education, is inviting a number of us up on Wednesday the 25th. So if anybody wants to come up to the Capitol and meet with some of the representatives, please check your calendars. I'll be heading up on the 25th, and or if you have any issues that you would like to bring forward when I see Senator Sparks and Representative Bennett. The other thing that I have for you is I just emailed it to you, and Ashley, can you go ahead and pop that up? Not that document, a different one. That one. Yep.
Mike,
Okay.
can I ask you a question about that other bill?
Yes.
Was there part of it originally that was like interstate licensing or so an Iowa
Yes.
teacher? is
Yes.
that
Makes
still-
it makes it easier
is
for
that
to
still-
transfer.
is that
Yes,
still
I believe
part
it
of
is.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yep.
So-
Basically, it's easing up on some of the requirements or some of the, making it, I would say, easing up on the requirements of making it more straightforward, simpler to get done. All right, so, we had some discussion that, potential will be starting school early, and so if the board, I don't know what the board is going to do on that. Some of the concerns I heard from a few board members was the Lakeview Boulevard project that the city's going to be working on this summer. So I had Steve Anderson meet with our bus company and say, okay, what happens if the Lakeview Boulevard project is going on? And he also talked with the city engineer today on it as well. But basically, it's in your emails I sent to you, but it looks like a 5-minute change on a worst-case scenario for pickup and drop-off, if that were to be the case. So, and I don't know, again, depending on when the work is done, but that's what the feedback that Steve got from the bus company and the city on that. So I just wanted to make you aware of it. And that's all I have tonight.
Thanks. Questions for Dr. Funk? Okay, thank you. Gabe?
Well, my counterpart Quinn isn't here today, so I will do just doing this by myself, if I can speak English right. Me and Quinn have talked with Afton about doing the, what do we call it? Task force of doing the social media, and we have picked about 2 students out of, our plan is to have about 4 community members with the advice of Afton of who would be good to help this, and we have decided we shouldn't really lean on parents because parents have become too biased, especially on social media, because my kid says this. That's not enough. And then we will pick one member from each grade to represent, and then me and her would sit it, and with Afton and Mr. Goldsmith helping us. That's what we have on that. That's pretty much what I have. If
That sounds like a good start. Questions or comments about that? Thank you. School board member reports. Jill?
One thing I've been involved in is the Leaders Partnering to End Poverty sessions that have been going on monthly. And I just wanted to invite everybody, the board and everybody here and everybody listening later too, that Monday, this coming Monday, February 23rd, at First Lutheran, they're going to have their community get together where the different groups from the project will be presenting a little bit of what they're thinking about as far as working on concepts in the community. So it'll be a really great thing for all of the community to come together if they're available. It's Monday, February 23rd, First Lutheran. It's 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. and there'll be a light supper served from 5 to 5:30. So everyone's invited to that.
Thanks for representing us on that. Anything else? Julie, anything? No? Linda?
Thing. Oh, I was able to be one of the judges at the spelling bee at Southwest a couple weeks ago, which was very fun to do. Fun to see those bright young kids. And also, I'm working on the Teacher of the Year committee. So our reception is tomorrow, and then in March, there will be the reception for I think we're going to do maybe 6, 7 finalists. We're not sure yet, depending upon how many people we have. So that's it.
Thank you. Bill, anything? So I have a few things. The science fair is this Saturday at the mall, and as long as Dave gets over whatever he has, Julie, Dave, and I are going to be a judging team, so we'll see how we do. But I encourage everyone to go and support those students. I did want to mention Bill Leland, who is Bill's the chair of the Minnesota School Boards Association Insurance Trust, and this was mailed out to the entire state this week. That is a portion of the Minnesota School Board Association that oversees and provides insurance opportunities for its members, which include property, crime, automobile, general liability, legal liability, and workman's comp. And Bill's been elected the chair of that group, so we thank you for doing that. It's important work. I'm sure it's under the radar, and people only notice it when they need those kind of things, but it's very important work, so we appreciate you taking the time to do that. And then I did want to mention, we have 4 all-state music students who went up to the cities this weekend and sang at the Minnesota Music Educators Midwinter's Conference. And they were Scott Grzybowski, who's a senior, Rika Boersma, who's a senior, Sam Ware, who's a junior, and Sovig Ling, who you met earlier, a junior as well. So they represented us well up there. She's a senior, so you've already messed that up, so thank you, Gabe. So I did want to mention them. That was this weekend. What was that about? The Minnesota Music Educators Midwinter's Conference. Midwinter's Conference. Anybody else? Anything else? Okay. Curriculum instruction, 8.1, approval of the high school 8th and 9th grade academy. I need a motion to approve that item.
So move.
Julie first, a second? Second. Jill, a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye? Aye. Anyone opposed? Same sign. Okay, motion carries, thanks. Effective and efficient operations, we'll have a discussion about the calendar for 2015-16. And some different ways to do this. We can just kind of round robin, or we can take turns speaking. I'm open for either. I don't know if anybody else wants to start. Julie, you want to?
Sure,
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Just some feedback that I have. certainly a big pro of starting a few days prior to Labor Day, I feel, is ending that first semester when students are done for that winter Christmas break. So I definitely think that that is a pro. On the side I'm weighing, is the benefit worth that? Is that certainly the 4-H and state fair is a consideration that I'm weighing, and because the first semester ending before Christmas break only affects the high school students and not younger students, that's kind of a push and pull for me. Another thing too is that there would be a way to add those 8 instructional days, and we would still be done by the beginning of June if we added those on to the end of May. So initially, the thought that we would need to go all the way until the middle of June, I don't like that scenario for students. But if we could still be done the beginning of June, I think that's compelling as well. And another thing that I thought of, I don't know how many people this would impact, but it still is a consideration potentially that if we have school done in May, those families who have a college graduate, we may be bumping up to college graduations as well. I just know I have a daughter graduating from college, and if it were that, it's the same weekend, it's May 22nd. And so I don't want families to be in the difficult position of choosing, do I go to my high school graduation or my college child's graduation? And so I have most college graduations are earlier, but not all. As I know, Eau Claire's is that third weekend. So those are just some of the things I'm struggling with, of which outweighs the other. But those are kind of my thoughts. I see certainly benefits of both.
Jill, do you have comments, or?
Sure. I guess I have a question just for clarification first. So how would we even be allowed to make this change at this point as far as state approval or authority?
My understanding is that in order to start early, you either need a waiver from the Department of Education, which they have been granting, or you have to have a construction project in the district that exceeds $400,000, and we have a $2 million project. That is a automatic waiver. Or if there's a couple bills pending that may make both of those first point moot.
Thank you. And I guess other than that, I've just been weighing the benefits and costs as well. And I guess I like to think of the academic side, and then I have to think of the social side too, because students in the school district just aren't independent. We're all part of the larger social circle and family, so I'm looking at both of those pieces. When it comes to the academic benefits, like Julie was saying, I think, if classes are done before winter break, it seems to make sense, and that's something that I said about the modified calendar was something that might be a nice thing. But then I don't know if just that in itself, and I know there is some, maybe, I don't know if there's any benefit for college classes either, but I just see a lot of academic costs even in this balance. First of all, not all classes require comprehensive finals, so it's kind of a moot point for a lot of classes and a lot of our students. In this particular calendar, the first semester I think it's only 81 days, and the second is 90. So, 9 days shorter. So if one of our goals is to have better performance on finals and in classes, it seems like a lot of the reality of it is it seems a little counterproductive to me that we're shortening it for one thing, and then the whole calendar, I think, is shorter even than last year, so we're missing seat days. And I think there's kind of a lot of assumptions that kind of ride with it. We can assume that students will be less stressed if they're done with finals before winter break, but I know a lot of students who actually enjoy winter break to do their writing projects or catch up on homework, those kind of things. So to have that break actually sometimes is less stressful for students. And like we heard tonight, even with 4-H, some students will have to miss more than a week of the first 2 weeks of school, whether it's for the state fair or families would have to make decisions whether they're going to take their vacation or not. And that is definitely counterproductive in my mind for academic, processes. You can't miss more seat time, especially in the beginning. And then, I don't know if I've heard of some impact possibly on spring sport participation. So to me, just looking at the academic side, the costs seem to way outweigh the benefits of what I'm seeing right now. The social side, to me, looks a lot the same. Social benefits would be that the kids might have less stress over winter break, that there would be the week-long spring break, and that families would have mid-June together. But some of the social costs would be the positioning of the spring break, I don't think works well for a lot of families. I think it will be actually a hardship for a lot of families. They will have to find childcare. A lot of our families, they don't leave and go lay on the beach somewhere. They're here. They're working. They're not taking their time off during March. They're taking it off during summer if they can. And so it's more of a finding childcare issue for them. As well as I've heard, since it's not positioned around the weekend of the 27th and Good Friday, that is actually a hardship for families too, because culturally, that's when families spend a lot of time together, is over that weekend, and this doesn't accommodate that. But my major problem, or the most problems I see, are starting the 2 weeks early before Labor Day. I see the impact on the local businesses because they rely on our students working. The students themselves would lose out on 2 weeks of work. That's a whole entire full week paycheck for the students. And a lot of times they can maximize on those weeks because the college kids are gone and they can maybe pick up a few more hours and get more work done. And how will they make that money up? They may have to work more during the school year, which again is counterproductive academically in my mind. We have 4-H students who would miss out on either the experience of the state fair after they've worked hard and it's an honor to make it there, or missing that whole big chunk of school. I see less family time for families if their vacation is scheduled before Labor Day, and I've actually had correspondence from several families that this impacts right now, because we're just 6 months out right now from the start of school, and people have to put in their vacation times, they have to put in their deposits. Months ago, they've been in already. And so these families will either have to again, pull their child out of school, miss those seat days, or they'll have to lose their deposit, they'll have to lose their time together, and a lot of times it's with extended family, it's with grandparents or family in another city. They've planned it. Things don't easily change like that. Also daycare. I've heard people who will be losing money who have set aside certain dollar amount for daycare in their flex planning, and now that money will be lost, and that family will have to sacrifice some other way. They'll have to not do some other thing that they had wanted to do, or not have a month's mortgage, or it affects them greatly. And then one that really hits home for me too are just the stresses that this, to me, it's a last minute change. To me, changing things right now potentially for fall will really affect split families and blended families. And growing up in a family like that, I really understand the stress that goes along with those situations. And those families, if we're going to look at student needs, what are student needs? These students actually have double the need for family time because they basically have to split themselves between one side of the family and the other. So they do have a greater need for family time, and if their scheduled family time is with one certain parent those last 2 weeks before Labor Day, that will cause a huge, huge stressor on that family and on that system, and it cannot easily be changed or renegotiated. It's a big process, and I've seen that even with my children in the second generation. It affects seriously the families. So again, social costs as well way override the benefits. So to me, if I look at the needs of students, I would think the needs of students would best be met by starting after Labor Day, a shorter spring break around Good Friday, and ending the school the first week of June, which I think is possible. We had a similar calendar in 2009, I think was the last Labor Day this late. So that would be where I would want to go.
Let me ask both of you, the days of instruction. You know, the other calendars we looked at were 160, 162, 164, I think, and this one's 170, 171. This year we had 175? 170?
175 high school, 173 elementary. Since I've been in the district, we've averaged probably about 170 to 171 days a year.
So is there a number that you have as far as it's got to be 160 too low, 175? I mean,
State mandate's 165.
165, okay.
I guess I would just like to see what we can maximize out of a calendar looking like this. How many seat days can we get out of this? I just haven't seen it, I guess. And it seems like it's doable if we have these 8 days early on, like Julia was saying, we can move them later or switch some things around. It seems like we could have this same chunk of days at least if they're just moved to different areas. So it would seem doable to me to at least keep the same amount, the 171.
And then I'm trying to understand the spring break and the daycare, because I guess I don't understand if you're off a week, don't you have to seek daycare if it's the week before or the week before that? I mean, I don't quite follow that.
I guess what I understand is families will generally be off, maybe that Good Friday, Easter weekend, maybe the Monday after as kind of family time, whether they're traveling or staying at home. So the parents are going to be off those days anyway. But a midweek like that's not associated with a holiday, I guess, on either end, is just feels like to me, from what I'm hearing, is an additional week just to kind of cover, because the parents would otherwise be working.
I guess I don't know if we attached our spring break to Easter in the past. I don't know. Is it?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
So some years it has been and some it hasn't?
Correct.
Okay. And have we gotten comments about either way?
We had school Good Friday last year, and I did not hear one comment from the community on that.
Say, I've never heard a complaint either when we don't have a whole week off. So I've never heard a complaint when there's not a whole entire week for spring.
For the break you're talking about? Okay. All right. Any other questions for Jill or Julie? Linda, do you have any comments?
Yeah. I know 4-H and the state fair are very important again. Do we have the number of students who actually participate in 4-H? You also have to include FFA. Right, yep.
I think it's on our letter from the county that there are, and I think Mike said there are 150 in the county. I don't know how many are Albert Lee, but 150 in the county for state fair, go to state fair. There are 600 that participate, I believe.
So we don't know for sure how many of those are actually Albert Lee students. That's my question. Is he still here? It's okay.
I'm not sure, but I would think that since Alberta is the biggest city in Fremont County, I would assume that most of them that are going to state fair are within the elementary school.
Thank you. Regarding the semester break, I really am a huge proponent of finishing that first semester before Christmas break or holiday break. Whether you're taking a final or not, you're still coming back for, 10 days, 8 days, whatever it is, to finish up that semester. So for me, I really, if we can get that first semester done by Christmas break, I mean, that's awesome. I was actually speaking with a teacher the other day, and she was really a huge proponent of starting school as early as you can, just to jumpstart these kids, get them back into the routine, just get them going. And so she was really encouraged by, an earlier start, because this year it's just so late. Labor Day is so late. I do know that when I lived in North Dakota, the college graduation, high school graduation, fell at the same time all the time. And I do know families who did have a college graduate and a high school graduate. And that is, it happens. Sometimes graduation is, UND, I think it's like Mother's Day weekend. So anyway, so that is. But the other talk, when we were talking about the spring break, I know last year we had talked about the importance of Good Friday. And I think as a board, we had decided that, it was okay not to have that Good Friday off. We talked about that. And as a board, we had decided that, to keep those weeks continuous, so we have the 5-day weeks, that Good Friday wasn't a factor. I know teachers, I've spoken with teachers too, students, that week, spring break, is a good time to just decompress for teachers and students. Just kind of take some time and, have a little time off. So, a week spring break to me is I think, beneficial. I have never heard anything about a spring sport being affected by this calendar. I don't quite understand. I guess maybe track or something, because it goes, excuse me, until June, but track always goes till after school's done. People are going to state for graduation. I guess that's about all I have to say. Thanks.
I got contacted by a lot of people about the sports, and so I think I understand what the issue is, but I don't agree with it. And here's the issue, is that if school gets out too early, then sports are still ongoing, and, I can't get my kid to the sport because school's out. The corollary to that is that our fall athletes are going to start, I think it's August 2nd or 9th, probably 9th. So there's not going to be any school for a month, and they're going to have to get to practices. So, it works on both ends. And it's an issue on both ends, but it's not a different issue. But I think that's the issue, that school's going to end and the sports are going to be ongoing, and how's that going to work? Same thing happens in August. There's all these sports. So that's what my understanding of what the concern is. Bill, you have comments, or?
First of all, I appreciate the comments by everybody, and you all have brought up good points. Boils down to me, number one, I am very interested in getting the first semester done by Christmas time. I think it is a valid thing to consider. And then it just boils down to whether or not we're going to be encroaching, significantly into June or into August. So it's a toss-up for me with regards to that.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, what would be the benefits that you see for ending semester before winter break?
The students that I've talked to all expressed anxiety over the fact that they were going to be coming back to school and having to finish papers, do an exam, their final exam. So I didn't talk to any students at all that were using the time at Christmas time as a means to make up or catch up or anything like that. It was primarily just the anxiety that they were coming back to it.
All right. So this is the first year mostly that teachers actually enforced our finals to actually affect any of our grades, especially CIS classes as well as regular classes. My winter break, I literally had a panic attack because I was worrying about this will literally drop my grade, probably half letter grade or even a whole letter grade if I fail my final. Ending before Christmas break, I feel like gives you more of a chance where you're done. You finish your final and then it's like relief. I don't know if this is the best solution. I don't know anything. I'm only 17. I don't have any experience. Any of you have. But as a student, I would have loved to have Christmas break after I was done with my finals, because a lot of teachers did, and every teacher I had ended a unit or a chapter right before we left. I had a lot of tests that day. But then we came next week, we had a refresher week, and a lot of my friends did not know what they were doing because they forgot everything that they just learned. You go back to your finals, I remember half my friends freaking out because we don't remember what was supposed to happen because we had that week off. We had 2 weeks off. And 2 weeks is such an impact just in school. Missing 2 days, you're drowning because you don't know what you're doing. So ending before Christmas break is something that I think should happen. It would affect my siblings, it would affect my friends' younger siblings, and even some of my friends.
Very good, well said, thanks. So I have a couple of comments. First of all, I want to answer the transparency issue. And I just want to make clear for everybody that this calendar is a calendar that I came up with that's been modified slightly by two groups in the district. And those groups are what we call the cabinet, which is the high school principals and administrators, and then the curriculum, or the calendar committee. And we don't have a calendar for this district for next year, so we need a calendar. So I came up with the calendar and I gave it to them. And so I just want that to be crystal clear that the origination of this calendar is me. And I chose the early start date because of all the teachers that I talked to over the last 4 months, and I'm gonna guess it's close to 50 or 60, I quit counting. I had a list of questions that I asked each one, and one of those was, what do you think about ending the first semester for the high school students before Christmas? And all but one thought that was a good idea. Every student that I've asked thinks it's a good idea. In fact, they had Gabriel's exact comments. So that's why I picked that start date. And I only wanted to start as early as necessary to accomplish that goal. Secondarily, that could move the calendar ahead in June. And I personally, I don't want to go to mid-June, but I don't think June 3rd is different than May 29th. I don't think that matters to me. I don't think that spring break is an academic issue. That spring break we chose was moved a little bit from what I wanted, because I was a proponent for Good Friday off, but I mean, my employer, we don't get Good Friday off. Most employees still work on Good Friday. That is at the end of the quarter. That's why that week was chosen. That's an academic reason for that to be the spring break. So for those reasons, that's the calendar I came up with. And again, those two other groups modified it slightly, and so there it is. What I wanted to avoid were the following things, which it doesn't contain. It does not contain extra 2-week breaks. Just as you heard Gabriel just say, we heard loud and clear that extra 2-week breaks, there may actually be some learning loss, and so there are no 2-week extra breaks in this calendar. We don't want a 2-week break at Christmas and then come back and have finals for that exact same reason. So that's why we went in the first semester before Christmas break. This calendar, we also heard loud and clear, we want our summer, we want 12 weeks of summer. This has 12 weeks of summer. I think that then starts to answer the questions about students working and students having jobs. There's full 12 weeks in this calendar for students to do those type of things. So I think it didn't have any of the other issues that we talked about. It didn't have any mandated remediation. It simply starts early enough to end the first semester before Christmas break. Things I don't like about it that we've already discussed is that it is unbalanced, that there's 81 or 80 days in the first semester, more in the second. However, in the second semester, there are some mandated testing dates that we have to do. And so those would eat up 4 or 5 of those days to make it a little bit more balanced. I think it's an academic reason to start early. I do understand and I appreciate, and I'm not minimizing the concerns that are raised about these other extracurricular activities. I am interested in learning how the most agricultural of our districts to our west, 21 of them, start in mid-August and somehow make the state fair and 4-H work. I don't know how they do it. Maybe they have different opinions about it, but I would like to learn about that. I know Stewartville has passed a calendar this week, or late last week. They're going to start in mid-August. So some of these other districts have somehow worked with these early Labor Day starts. We already have policies for students to miss. If they need to be at the state fair, they can miss. Yes, they might have to miss. They might have to be at the state fair fewer days. I understand that. But for the majority of our students, especially the high school students that we're trying to train for college, that's why I think we should end the first semester before Christmas break. Those other concerns are valid, and I understand them, but in my opinion, they don't rise to the level of an academic reason to start 8 school days early, which this year happens to be 2 full weeks. I do understand that. If you look at next year's calendar, to get in 80 or 81 days, we'd have to start August 29th. And that's just the Monday before Labor Day, because when Labor Day shifts back, which it does, and Christmas is on a Sunday that calendar year. I'm opposed to doing a 2-year calendar because I think at the end of this semester, if this would pass, we would need to ask our students and our teaching staff, how did that go? Did you find value in it? Did most of the students have Gabriel's thoughts or not? And so those were my reasons. That's why I proposed it. That's why we want to listen to everybody. I appreciate all the comments. And again, I don't think it's correct to vote on it tonight in Dave's absence, because when it gets voted on, I want all the members here so that the vote is valid and that nobody comes back and says there was anything non-transparent. I do really appreciate that this meeting that we just had was a lot of people talking and giving ideas, but everybody did it in a very respectful manner. That means a lot to me. I really, really appreciate that. And I think we can do this again and again. So I think what I'm going to propose for the March 2nd, is it March 2nd meeting, is that this will be back on the agenda. Now, I also appreciate greatly that we are getting close to those dates on the calendar. So, you know, we could get snowed out. I could be sick. At some point, we're just going to have to pull the trigger. But I don't think it's fair to Dave to do it tonight, because I don't want there to be any comments that, oh, Dave just didn't want to come, or he was nervous about it, or even, I don't think that's fair either. So, so that's why I don't think we should vote tonight.
Couple things. I have a list, and you can scroll there, Ashley. This is a list of, most of these districts are in the Farm Belt in southwestern Minnesota: Laverne, Marshall, Minneota, Mountain Lake, Redwood. They're part of a consortium of school districts that start, I think they started August 17th this year. There's 21 of them. Also, scroll down a little bit, you'll see, well, Austin has their one school on there. Wabasha-Kellogg in southeastern Minnesota kind of does it on their own as an early start. And as you heard, Stewartville will be doing an August 20th start. Their board approved that this past year. So my comment on this is, and I'm interested, and I will be talking to a few people. I'm really interested to see the impact on FFA and 4-H for all these students in the Southwest and how they go about doing that. So I owe that information to the board as far as how they're able to work through that. The second comment I've got is, I have members from the cabinet here and some members from the calendar committee. Mark, it's up to you if you want to hear their feedback on this latest iteration of the the calendar, because we took your planning guidance and went with it, and I don't know if you're interested in hearing from them tonight or not.
I think that'd be a good idea. I purposefully, intentionally did not attend either of those meetings because I think it's important that the professionals that we've hired for the district and the representatives of the district on the calendar committee had a chance to do that without my, vocal influence. So I don't know who's here, but if they would want to, that'd be fine.
So, Johanna, are you out here someplace? Yep, why don't you come on up? Mark Grossklaus from the high school angle, why don't you come on up? What else do we have? Mary, why don't you come on up here as well? Mary sat in on the calendar committee. And Johanna was a member of the calendar committee. Mark is a member of the cabinet. So they can give you a little bit different perspectives. And as the high school principal, he can give you firsthand account of what his thoughts on an earlier start are, because it would impact him. So go ahead. Thoughts from, or Johanna, you want to give an overview of what occurred at the calendar committee, or?
Yeah, the attendance at the calendar committee, from what I heard, and I don't want to fully speak from all the units that were there, but what I took away from that was we heard that having as many 5-day school weeks was very important for instructional purposes. And as far as the principals group, there's very strong support with this calendar regarding the start date, the ending date, the semester breakup, and also the ability to make up snow days was very strong support from that. The other concern that I heard from the calendar committee was from some of the units is a reduction in instructional days would potentially affect employees that work on, basically their contract is based on teacher or student contact days. And that was talked through at the committee also, and Dr. Funk can let you know how that was addressed, that it's not a money-saving component for that. It wouldn't affect their contract days. But those were the concerns and the support that came from that committee and from the principals group.
I would say many of our students would say the same thing Gabe is about ending before winter break. I came from a district that used to have 2 weeks after winter break, then went to 1 week, and then finally realized that it made more sense for students to finish up before winter break, so those issues weren't hanging over students. As Chairman Schoddy mentioned, state testing will eat up a number of those days in the spring, so having an unbalanced number is not a negative thing. We lose out on many days. This year we have ACT testing for juniors and MCA Math, that's 2 days just for the juniors, plus other things. The big benefit no one has mentioned is as we push and gain more students taking AP courses, having more courses further along in the school year prepares those students for AP testing, because AP testing is mid-May. So if we went, let's say, June 10th, those students would have to either come in on weekends or study ahead of time, so that would benefit those students. I see a lot of vacation days that I approve that aren't during spring break, so I would suspect 15 or 20 of them came across my desk this week for vacations in February, so I don't think spring break's a big vacation time. And then we work with parents, things come up. If a student is going to miss, we would work with that parent and figure out how we can help them and their student be successful so that they weren't behind. If they were headed to the state fair, we'd look at what are some options and talk to parents and work with parents. And we deal with this if a student gets sick. We have a number of students with mono, students with illness, so I think staff would work with them. I really think that ending before winter break is a huge, huge benefit to our students. especially those students that are planning on going to college, as it prepares them for that ending, and then we start fresh. And then with the number of staff days in January there, I think that's beneficial to our staff, so. Questions about high school or students, or before I turn it over to Mary?
Is there any decision building-wide as far as making finals compulsory or comprehensive or anything like that?
Well, I've pushed for finals. Finals look different to different courses, so I asked staff to use their professional judgment this year, and I'm kind of reviewing how things went. Art might not have a traditional final, but they might have a final project, public speaking, wood shop. So I think you will see most of our academic courses had some type of final or ending unit type of measurement. I don't know, and I would look for the board and Dr. Funk's recommendation. If I know there used to be a mandated final, and I'm not sure how beneficial those are if you force those, if they're not natural finals. So I think it depends on the course and what that course looks like. Children, I can't think of the course, Gabe, help me out. Child development, they go out to the local businesses, childcare, and the schools, and so having a final there probably doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think it's based on course and what's needed, so.
Mary, you want to touch base on the testing component?
Sure. I will also add that I agree with all the reasons stated this evening. Ending semester 1 before winter break is definitely best for our students. The additional days, semester 2, would support the testing that's required by the state for the MCAs, and now the addition of the ACT for our juniors. Students in grades 3 through 8 all take a reading and a math test. 10th graders take a reading test, 11th graders take a math test. They take the ACT test, and our 5th and 10th graders also take a science test. So those tests average about 4 hours to complete, and we generally don't encourage students to take that in one day. So we are needing those extra days to accommodate an appropriate testing environment for all of our students. A few other comments about this calendar. I think the opportunity for ongoing staff development for all of our employees, not just our teachers, is definitely a plus when you see those weeks in August and then again in January, there's some days. And it also provides a new opportunity to support our students that are transitioning to a new building, something that we've looked at and never been able to support. For example, 6th graders starting at the middle school and our 8th graders starting at the high school, having an opportunity to meet their needs so they have a smooth transition into those environments.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Laura, you want to touch base on the concerns we heard from one of the units, or one or two of the units on the days piece from the calendar committee?
Can I ask Mary a question first? I think I remember in the original ACT mandated testing law that originally that law said that the school, no other students would come that day. Is that still true, or that's been changed?
That is up to the district to choose
okay.
that, but we are pretty tight in when we have to start the test by. We cannot offer a lunch break until all students have finished testing. So many feet between each table. I mean, they've definitely laid out lots of criteria, but that's been a district decision unless that's changed, Mike. I'm not aware of.
They're recommending, they're not mandating, but they're recommending that districts, because of the manpower intensity and the space issues, that they don't have school that day. And we are planning on having school, aren't we? Yep.
And I will also add, if a student takes the ACT on another date outside of April 28th, they still have to participate in our MCA administration per state guidelines for the ACT.
And take it again,
Correct.
even if they don't want to? Okay.
For example, one of the questions that came from the food service unit were the fact that, as was mentioned, the number of work days for them is established by the number of instructional days. And so the clarification given to that unit is that we would actually provide staff development days to smooth out that work calendar so they would not see a reduction of number of work days.
Get a do button. Any other comments from anybody? Board members, Dr. Funk, anybody? Okay. So I think we're going to move past this item. I appreciate everybody's input and the manner in which that it was accomplished. I appreciate that. Thank you. Item 10.2, policies for review. Jim.
Good evening. We have three policies, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. We have three policies to review tonight. We're getting on a cycle here of reviewing some of these as changes come up. In all three of them, I would say generally there is not significant changes in what's required, but there are some changes mostly in definitions. I can run through them real quickly, starting with the FMLA policy number 410. The majority of the changes related to this policy, excuse me, really pares down the definitions for military members. They've been able to more succinctly put some of what some of these definitions mean because military members have a different level of benefit when it comes to FMLA. The number of weeks is substantially more. So there's some reformatting of definitions in here. There's clarifying definitions as they put them in last time for the first time. Now as they've been able to use them, this is the MSBA model policy, by the way. They've refined them more. Let's see. Also in there, it does include a big section that was before not in there that relates to the Minnesota 12 weeks of medical leave. So it basically gives them not a choice, but it lays out that 12-week entitlement not only under federal law, under FMLA, but there's also a state 12-week benefit as well.
So that trumps any contract.
That's correct. That's the majority of the changes in FMLA. Like I said, most of it is either paring down the definitions or clarifying them, particularly for military members. The second policy for review is policy 413, and that's the harassment and violence policy. There is not a lot of change in here. Looking at the MSBA model policy, but what it does is it kind of gets the harassment verbiage in line with the new bullying law. So they're more in line. There's very few, like I said, there's very few changes in there. It does make some changes as far as who is, let me back up. It makes changes as to beefing up what would happen if people don't report it when they know what's going on. Okay, so that whole idea of mandatory reporting and somebody knowing that they see something and they don't report it, it does address that in here. And it also talks about reprisal if someone does come forward. You'll see that very heavily in this policy where, it really beefs up the language for failure to report and consequences, thank you, consequences for any reprisal or retaliation, which was not as extensive before. It said you shouldn't do it before, but now it really lays out what that is. And finally, the last one is the mandated reporting of child neglect, policy number 414. Very, very minor changes in there. The only thing that in there at all where they made a change was saying that as soon as practical after the school receives the incident report, that they would notify parents or the appropriate as soon as possible. So that must have come out of some legal action is my guess. So if you're looking on page 5, if you want to look at it, it's subsection C there. And that is the only change. Any questions?
And these are part of the 3 readings approval process?
Yes.
Okay. And this is number one?
Correct.
Any questions for Jim? Thanks, Jim. Any other business? I did want to talk about the March 16th meeting. I know 4 people at this table can't be at that meeting, and so I think we should discuss that. I think options are just not meet that day, and thereby lengthening the March 2nd meeting if there's any mandatory financial things that we have to approve. We could meet the week after. I don't like the idea of meeting 2 weeks in a row. I don't think that makes sense to me.
I think you could just meet March 2nd, and we could do what we've done previously for the financial piece. That shouldn't be an issue.
Does anybody have thoughts about not meeting March 16th? Is that okay? And then do we have to put that on the March 2nd agenda to cancel a meeting? Is that an official, or just?
I think you can probably we can put it on there
For
to
March
cancel the
2nd,
March
just as an
16th
action
meeting.
item?
Yep.
Yeah, since it's a public meeting, okay. Anybody else with other business?